I guess we can get this meeting started. I just wanted to mention, I listened in on the Finance Committee yesterday. It was a fantastic presentation. What you guys go into in the details is utterly amazing. But anyway, I got a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. This is Jim.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, let's move right on to the action items. The design services task order for the 36-inch water main upsize.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee. My name is Amulya Podel, Program Manager with the Capital Programs Group. I am here this morning to seek your approval on the design task order for the Belmont Ridge Road Water Transmission Main Upsizing Project. I want to start with the location here. In the central system, we operate 3 distinct pressure zones. This project is in the 538 zone, on the outskirts of 538 zone. The project is just south of Route 7 along the Belmont Ridge Road corridor here. Some background on the project. With the addition of JLMA service area to the central system, the demand in 538 zone has been growing, and we anticipate it to further accelerate as the development comes along. In the past, the master plan that we completed back in 2018, 2019, and then which was subsequently updated after JLMA was added to our service area. These hydraulic analysis indicated they identified deficiencies in the system and recommended improvements to meet future demands and minimize strain on our infrastructure. One critical recommendation out of this master plan update and studies was so the 20-inch transmission main along Belmont Ridge Road was identified to be a bottleneck in the system. So it recommended increasing the capacity of flow in that area. It was either add another pipe or upsize the existing pipe would be the way to upsize to increase the capacity in the system. And this is what that project is to increase the carrying system capacity in that corridor. By increasing the capacity, there's 2 benefits to that. One is we need it to meet the increased demand, the future demand. And the other is, as the system grows, our reliance on the water produced at TRAP will continue to increase. This increased capacity here allows us to pump more water into the system from the Trap Rock plant. Some background on this project here. This area along Belmont Ridge Road, there are 3 distinct segments. One to the north near Route 7. This is a 20-inch main that was installed in 1973. And then the yellow segment here to the south is 20-inch main that was installed in 2017, 2018, but we beneficially accepted it in 2019. That was part of when the county widened the Belmont Ridge Road, that water line was put along the new roadway alignment. The section in between the red and yellow, this one at the time, our master plan at the time was already showing that we need 36-inch in this segment. So we were able to coordinate with the county project team and get that water main upsized to 36. So this here, there's no, it is already 36-inch, no need for additional upsizing in this segment here. Like I said, the segment to the south, because it is relatively new, by the time we go to construction, this will only be less than 10-year-old pipe. We wanted to look at options here, and the board approved a study task order 6, 7, 8 months ago, and we involved our consultants to evaluate 2 options. One being replacing the water main in the existing trench, basically removing this existing 20-inch water main and replace that with 36-inch. The other option would be to install parallel water main. Our consultant came back with a recommendation of replacing it in the same trench. And then we looked at factors like the cost of parallel installation versus same trench replacement, operational impact of the work, potential land acquisition needs associated with a parallel main, long-term O&M needs and efforts to maintain these two pipes. So after considering a couple of these factors, we ultimately agreed with consultants' recommendation and decided to proceed with replacing the new 36-inch main at the same location as the 20-inch is. I can take a pause if you have a question on the scope of the.
Was the option of replacing the existing main cheaper because of the trench, existing trench that was already there? What was making the cost?
Yes, it was about, the consultant's estimate was about 25% cheaper, mainly to do with, now you don't need a rock excavation. So there were cost savings. And then with the breeze that's there. So there were a couple other permitting, other issues on the new alignment, and land acquisition would have been another kind of difficult element of that.
And then what about segment one? That's at 20 as well, right?
Yeah,
20
but that one, it is already 50 years old. By the time we go to construction, it would be 55. And and there is already a development coming in that corridor. So there was less choice of parallel pipe. That one, we kind of went with an idea that it would make sense to replace it in trains.
Thank you.
Just a summary of scope of work here. So this project includes design, permitting, and bid phase services associated with a total of almost 10,000 linear feet of pipe, replacing 20 to 36 inch. The existing crossing we have under WNOD trail is not big enough for this larger pipe. So we will need trenchless crossing under the WNOD trail. And because we selected an option that is replacing at the same location, evaluating operational impact and maintaining system operation it's a pretty key challenge on this project and a good bit of effort on this task order. And while we do have easements for permanent easements, we will likely need quite a bit of additional temporary construction easement. So there will be easement plats that will be needed for this option here.
Amoya, Mr. Bombjuls has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, this is Jim. That northern end where you have the red line for the 20-inch of Belmont Ridge, there's quite a construction going on for new data centers. And with our recent conversations about data centers and water, I was curious whether we know whether those are going to be water cooled and how much water requirements those large data centers might have. If we don't know now, we could find out. So
the one to the west where Vantage is constructing, those are all air cooled. I am not super familiar with the plan development on the east side of Belmont Ridge Road. If anybody.
Well, the west side is what I was talking about, between there and the Goose.
Yeah, Vantage is all air cooled.
It's all air cooled.
And yeah, they already have service, so they tapped into the existing system, and they're served. It was installed by the developer, so there is already a crossing on a line that crosses Belmont Ridge Road to feed Vantage. It was completed just last year.
Okay, well, that's good information. Thank you. Just looking at the map, and I drive Belmont Ridge Road a lot, and I see that construction going on. So the thought occurred to me. So thank you.
Moving forward.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just curious, what do you do with the main that you're taking out? Is it salvageable or
Pipes.
the pipe?
Yeah, internally, that was one of the things we discussed during the study, and based on the precedent here, and then we will probably keep a few stick of pipe. What you're talking about here is almost 400 stick of pipe, right? In removing that entire 7,600 feet. So at this point, we do not intend to keep it. So we'll probably keep like 10, 15 for our maintenance need, but the rest, we haven't decided, but it'll most likely go to scrap metal or somewhere, unless the contractor finds other use.
We currently don't have space to save all of that pipe either.
It's only 6 years.
We've had some experience in the past. Years ago, we had a big lot of the purple plastic pipe that we used for the reuse system left over from a job, and we took that and we stored it here at Broad Run, and it sat. And then we had a project come up, and we then looked at, can we reuse this and assign it to the contractor for our capital project? It had sat out in the sun a bit. We tried to cover it, but it got to a point where we were concerned with the liability of assigning that material to the contractor and putting that back in the ground. And so I think that's kind of factored into our decision of being cautious about trying to reuse the entire lot of pipe.
I was just curious.
But this material is
Mm,
that's not,
correct.
yeah, so is there a benefit to looking into maybe finding an alternate place for storage of over a mile of ductile 20-inch pipe that was 6
Yeah.
years old?
I do think that's something that we'll probably continue to explore.
I mean, I can see the 1973, it's probably well beyond its
Yeah.
useful life. But
I'd be curious if there's any exchange or any way to sell it to some other, I don't know if there's any, I was thinking about these, exchanges that are out there in terms of selling goods and other vendors, other organizations or vendors would want to purchase. I don't know about something like this, but they're saying it's fairly new, so 6 years. I don't know if something exists or not. I don't know if you guys have heard of anything.
Of course, if you do that, there's a liability that if the pipe fails when the new user uses it,
Yeah, then who are they pointing their fingers at?
they point fingers at us.
Yeah.
Set up without a warranty of any kind.
Well, you could do that. The
Certainly
other
think,
question I had is, where is the pipe located? In other words, is it close to the pavement? Are you going to be replacing a lot of pavement?
No,
It's all
it's
off.
entirely outside of the pavement. It's not in the roadway. So for this design task order, we've selected RK&K as design engineer. Some of the things we looked at in selecting the consultant is RK&K is one of our BOA civil consultant. We looked at the relevant project experience at Loudon Water, outside of Loudon Water, in other jurisdiction in Virginia, and which RK&K has quite a few that they've done similar projects for others. We evaluated their recent performance on, they just about last year completed a similar water transmission main in JLMA West, and the project went well, positive feedback from internal stakeholders. And we also checked their availability of their resources that they plan to assign to this task order. So after looking at these factors, we were comfortable moving forward with RK&K on this task order.
And that line's going to be out of service for quite a while. Well, while the construction's going on.
This, are you talking about? Yeah, the line itself, and that's one of the thing we've specified in the scope is we do need to maintain. One good thing is all of these areas that would be served by this water, there is a backup feed. So we do not expect like entire subdivision to be out of water. There may be some pressure drop at times, or when we're switching to temporary bypass setup. But we do not anticipate to be in a situation where the entire subdivision is like out of water or something like that. There may be slight pressure drop at times. This slide here, a typical slide that we always include a detailed breakdown of what's included in this scope. Project management, typical project management items, staffing, meetings, invoices, and project updates. In terms of design, the project will need a significant amount of survey, wetland delineation, utility designation all along that 1.5 mile corridor, geotechnical investigation. The consultant will prepare bid-ready documents and also cost estimating. We're asking the consultant to provide AACE Class 1 estimate, AACE class estimate for this project. And a lot of constructability review associated with maintaining operation of existing system here. On the permitting side, the project will need several different permits, as you see here, some state level permits and then local Loudoun County permits. in the end, the bid phase services here, typical bid phase services where the consultant will help us with addressing any questions we receive during the bid phase, preparing confirmed documents. So a typical mix of scope that we see on the linear projects. So the fee table here, I have here is a high-level summary of what we negotiated with the consultant. Like with every other task order, we build these fees from the bottom up. This particular one was 4 pages of spreadsheet. So in the end, this is where we felt comfortable moving forward. The base fee total is 839,000, which amounts to approximately 4% of the construction cost. And then this line item you see here, other direct cost and allowances. This is partly based on recent experience on other linear project where there are things like VDOT asking for additional bores, having to coordinate with developers, or some things that we know we will have to navigate on this project, but it's a little difficult to put cost to it right now. So the way we handle that is we set aside some allowances, quality level A, so test potholing the water line, just to make sure we know where the water line is. So there's a bunch of items that we know will be needed, but it's a little difficult to quantify. We included allowance on this task order for a total of $125,000. So, and including that allowance, the fee is at about 4.6, slightly below what we see on a linear project like this. Our historical experience is about 4%. And one of the reason it's slightly less here is, I think, is in the last 2 years, the material price has gone up so fast. The consultant cost hasn't been at the same pace as material price. So the construction cost has gone up. So the percentage is slightly below what we typically see on a linear project like this.
Seems to me that the geotech work should not be very, very large if you're going in the same trench.
So WNOD trail is that is where 2 of the bores are, and the others. No, I agree. So initially we started with quite a few bore, and we've reduced it. And that geotechnical also includes soil testing for cathodic protection, which our cathodic protection engineers need just for their design. So I would say relatively that fee total of 192, bulk of that is survey. Geotechnical is relatively smaller in that total there. So we anticipate this project, this is about 18 months design and permitting. And then we plan to move forward with bid, anticipate about 18 to 20 months of construction on this one. CIP snapshot. So we've been tracking this project under Water 86. And then the fee that's currently allocated for this project in 2025 to 35 CIP is $840,000 for planning and design. And this is the last slide before I move to motion, so I can take a pause if.
Just want to go back to the movie, the demand for this. Where's demand? Is it the data center growth or the expected data centers? Is that the primary driving factor for this project?
Okay, yes, it is. So primarily data center and all this new development anticipated in the JLMA, like the big area that was added to the central system, is driving the demand.
So there's no existing capacity challenges. It's just planning for future growth. Okay.
Yes. No further questions? I have the motion in front of you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
I have one comment or question. It's kind of a comment, not more than a question. I think when we reviewed the Sterling pipe replacement process, we were doing 5 miles. We expect to do about 70 miles of cast iron pipe replacement. And I really do think we need to have a recycling protocol. So we don't just shift. I mean, it's very convenient to shift everything to the contractor and for him to monetize whatever value there is on this. But I think as an authority, we should have a policy that looks at reducing, reusing, and recycling whenever possible. And this is a lot of material that is either going to be put back into a landfill or sold for scrap. And it has some value, and there's probably a value that we need to figure out as a policy going forward.
I'm kind of happy to give you an update on that. So after your comment during that Sterling, we actually we talked to a couple of different metal scraps around here, Leesburg scrap being one. So we actually are in discussion with them. It's looking like, based on the feedback, it is added cost for the project because you're not getting a lot of money out of it. But as a matter of standard practice, yeah, we are looking at ways to handle material in construction.
Any other questions?
One question I have is, I know with this project, there's the other costs that you have allocated, what, 125,000?
Yes.
How does that factor in with the 5% contingency? I know I see them as two different things, but you're allocating so much for the unknown already, but yet you're also identifying the 5% contingency.
The way we look at it is that 5% is solely for a thing that we just do not know now, right? So this is more like we know, but it's difficult to quantify. We do not know how many test holes we need. So yeah, so these are for work that we kind of know, but difficult to quantify at this time. That contingency is entirely for a thing we just do not know what's to come.
That
Good
that allowance also has to be authorized by us as well. So,
Say that again?
that allowance, the 125, will also be authorized by the project manager. So the RK&K doesn't have direct access to it to just use how they want. It's, hey, we understand we need to pothole or we need to do XYZ. Here's a proposal for it. It's just hard to quantify right now exactly what that's going to look like.
Thank you.
Is it quantified on a per soil boring basis, per test pit basis, so that when you get a proposal for the requested allowance, there is already a price agreed to?
Yes, so that's how we've scoped it. Is we have the basis established. It's just not knowing the quantity is what was the issue here, and we have strong languages in the scope where the consultant needs Loudon Water's written authorization before they proceed with any of this work.
Thank you.
Anybody want to make a motion?
The motion is slide.
Oops.
Yeah. I move the recommendation to the board to award a design task order for the Belmont Ridge Road Water Transmission Main Upsizing Project to RK&K Inc. for $964,000 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $1,012,000. Additional costs will require board approval.
Second.
And I recommend we put this on consent.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is approval of civil engineering BOA.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Savita Schlesinger. I'm the Director of Capital Programs, and I am here to request authorization to award basic ordering agreements for civil engineering and surveying services. So here's our agenda. We'll go over what a BOA is, talk about the types of engineering BOAs that we have at Loudon Water. We'll talk about how we use our civil BOA, go over at a high level our VPPA requirements, talk about the selection process and timeline that the committee embarked upon, and then provide our recommendation. And actually, before I move on, I forgot to introduce Amy Bevins. She is our Director of Procurement. Did I get that title right? Yeah. And she can help answer any procurement questions. So what is a basic ordering agreement? It's a contract that we put together to be able to access engineering services. And it's made up of two parts. So there's the basic ordering agreement, which is sort of the terms and conditions, and then the task orders. So in the basic ordering agreement, we define different things like insurance requirements, the responsibilities between the parties, claims and dispute resolution, and then payment provisions, how invoices are to be provided, et cetera. And then on the task order side, these are scopes of work, like the one that Amelia just went over with you, that we issue individually over the course of a BOA. And so that task order contains the scope of work, it contains the deliverables, the schedule, and then the engineering fee. Any questions on this?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm curious, are the task orders primarily firm fixed price or are they some time and material?
They're time and materials,
They're all
so they're
time.
all time and materials, yes.
Okay.
So what types of engineering BOAs do we have at Loudon Water? We actually have 3 different styles of BOAs. We have the civil BOA, which we're discussing today. We have the environmental BOA, which is actually, procurement is underway right now. We use the environmental BOA for larger projects like treatment plants and pump stations, maybe more complicated linear projects. And then we have the community systems BOA, which is, with these firms are geared more towards helping our community system projects. So the civil BOA expires at the end of this month. The environmental BOA will expire in Q1 of 2026, and then the community systems BOA, will expire in Q1 of 2027. And these are the current BOA holders that we have right now for each one of the BOAs. So how do we use a civil BOA? Really, the civil BOA for us is primarily for linear projects, so water and sewer projects, and then all of the components listed here: planning, surveying, design, construction, and permitting. We bring, forward task orders. You saw a lot of these components in the presentation that we just gave. RK&K is one of our current civil BOA holders, so kind of covers all of the various items that we would see in a typical task order, and others that are not listed here, but this is primarily what we use our civil BOAs for. Just some fun facts here. Over the last term of the BOA, we issued 71 task orders for a total value of $7.2 million and a median task order value of about $100,000. So how do we make a task order assignment to a particular firm? And Amelia just went over, kind of gave you an example of what we do on the last one, but we review the scope of project in detail, right? We talk about the various components of it, and then we talk about each consultant, their capabilities and their ability to meet the project needs. We'll then discuss that also with the consultant, make sure that they have the right staff, right? We are kind of confirming what we already think we know. And that they have the availability as well, right? And then from there, we'll select the consultant with the best skill set or experience for the project. Every task order that we write has a justification memo written for it to kind of explain why we selected that consultant. That's submitted to approval to each of the directors. So for my team, it comes to me for approval, and then we keep a copy of that in the file. One important thing to note is that we cannot choose a consultant for a task order based on cost. So it really is only qualifications based. It's a requirement out of the VPPA. So we'll switch now to kind of the VPPA requirements for selection of the new BOA holders. So the VPPA requires that we do a request for proposal process, that it must be qualifications based, and that we have to include the scoring system in the RFP. So the consultants or the proposers are aware of how they're going to be evaluated. We can award multiple, contracts to firms, right? So that we have options to choose from. And then there are some provisions around the contract. So we award a 1-year contract and it can be renewed up to 3 years for 4 years total. This is a change. It previously was renewable for 4 years, so a total of 5 years. But this was changed in the last couple of years since our last BOA. So now we have up to 4 years. There are also fee limits that are established, so we can't issue more than $10 million to a single BOA consultant in a given year. And no task order can be more than $2.5 million. Any questions on that? Okay, so moving into our procurement. So we issued the RFP. It was advertised at the beginning of June. and proposals were due in the beginning of July. Once we received the proposals, the evaluation team got reviewed all of the proposals, and on August 15th, we issued the shortlist. So we went through the scoring process internally. We had some discussions, and we decided who was going to be on our shortlist. We then also identified the firms that were going to participate in interviews. So there were 3 firms that made the shortlist that we decided not to interview, and then we chose to interview 4. And then, of course, we're here today with a recommendation for award. This will then be taken to the board, and then we'll execute the agreements in early November. So a little bit more about the RFP and our committee. We had 7 people on this committee. They represented various needs within the organization. So we had representation from capital programs, from the land development group, O&M programs, planning, and remote facilities. And those are primarily the folks who use the civil BOA within our organization. And then the evaluation criteria, this is the scoring matrix that was provided in the civil BOA RFP. There's obviously more detail, and I'll just kind of run through it. So the first category, team qualifications, we want to know about the team members that you're proposing. What is their background? What's their education? What experience do they have? The second category, BOA experience, we're looking for experience on BOAs, not just ours, right? Any BOAs, and there are lots of different types of BOAs. They're also called other things, on-call contracts and different things by different organizations, but they're all essentially the same thing. So tell us about your experience. And then outside of that, what other experience do you have? Because not all experience is gained through a BOA, right? People could be doing really interesting projects that are relevant for us, but they just didn't do it through a BOA. So what technical experience does your firm have? And then fourth, do you have a question, Mr.?
Yeah, I do. Now this is for the basically re-up period. I'm just trying to understand.
No, this is, we are established, so our current BOA period is ending. So
Yes.
we are establishing a new
New BOA,
period.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
for
this is
re-up
not the
period.
annual renewal. This is a whole new
New.
contract.
A
Yeah.
whole new contract, but you had the same contract previously.
Yes,
So now it's like an open season almost.
correct, correct.
So my only concern is that the second one down, firm's BOA experience will put new vendors at a huge disadvantage.
So it's not just our BOA, it's any BOA. So it could be
Oh, okay.
Fairfax County, it could be WSSC, lots of
Thank you.
Loudoun County, right? People do BOAs for Loudoun County.
So I was interpreting it as.
Yes.
Thank you.
But building on that, it does place a startup firm at a
It does.
disadvantage.
Yeah.
It does, right?
So
It does.
a new small business would
Would have
have
a hard time.
difficulty
Sure.
getting above 75.
Yeah, that's also why we ask for other technical experience, because you could have a lot of relevant technical experience, just wasn't through a BOA, right? But that's a good point.
And they could also operate as a subcontractor for a larger firm with other skill sets they could offer to a larger firm. And then we had also, one of our BOAs is for our community systems BOA, which is for smaller systems. So it was a way for us to scale down to a smaller firm.
And then value add. So what does your firm, what value can your firm add to Loudoun Water and the projects that we're doing? And then lastly, how do you handle change management? So we received 11 proposals.
I have one question.
Sure.
Does the location of their office have anything to do with this? Since you're dealing with them on almost, I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but does that enter into it at all?
Maybe a little bit, maybe only in the management staff, right? Technical experts and other folks. I mean, at this point, consulting firms sort of work all across the country, right? So it may be something that we discuss just in their availability to meet with us in person, but it's not a huge component, I would say.
In fact, I'm trying to recall, but in past selections, that first category there, project team qualifications, I think sometimes that can work in the other direction as well. They'll showcase where they have certain expertise that may be on the West Coast that may fit with certain projects that we're working on and things of that nature. So your question, it probably nests in there with project team qualifications.
So we received 11 proposals, and the team then, each member reviewed all of the proposals, provided their scoring. This is all done electronically in our Ion Wave system. And then we got together as a team, we discussed the scoring, we kind of discussed each of the firms, and we made our selection for the short list. And then also who we wanted to move into the interview stage.
When this team gets together, how do you handle the scoring? You have score sheets, or how does it?
Yeah, and Amy can talk a little bit more about that, but in Ion Wave, there's actually a format for us to input our scores for each of the criteria, and there's more detail than just kind of what's provided here, obviously. And then that will compile all of the scores, and then it creates like a report. Do you want to add anything?
No, I was just going to add, the old way was to use a paper format and we would have scoring sheets kind of stapled together for each person. But we use an e-procurement system now that allows us to build that into the procurement system. And so it's a lockdown for each evaluation task that we go through. There's a separate component in the system. And so we take the material from the RFP and actually load it into the evaluation criteria in the system so that the evaluators can see, yes, this is what we had in the RFP. This is what we're evaluating each firm on. And it's an independent review. So when we open the proposals in the system, the evaluation committee members, it's an independent review. They're not collectively talking. So all of those are due by certain due date and time. And then in procurement, we unlock that review, all the scoring, the comments, and then we have a scheduled evaluation committee meeting to then discuss and answer any questions that anybody might have as well.
This is a silly question, but generally, do you find that people are pretty much in agreement, or do you find big differences in ratings?
No, we do a really good job with the point system. We actually lay out what's excellent, which, what is good, what is in the middle there, poor, and then all the way to unacceptable. So we kind of also lay out the scoring to really allow people to score in the same way. So if everybody feels like they're excellent, they're a 9 or a 10 out of 10 points versus someone doing 10 points and somebody that put in a 6 for what they thought was excellent. So that's another way to try to bring the scoring in a consistent way. But I would say on all of the RFPs, the team is very consistent in their scoring and their feelings about what they've seen and heard. And we do so much work on the front end to review what our needs are. We're really doing a lot of work on the front end to be all on the same page as to what we're looking for in these firms. If there is any discrepancy, we pick that up in procurement. It actually highlights it in the system to show, this is an area that's really off among the evaluators. And it's another good reason that we have so many evaluators on the evaluation committee, rather than having just 3, like 2 or 3 people evaluating. We try to add more to the evaluation committee and representing different departments throughout the organization, because everybody brings a different perspective and they all have their individual needs. But if we do see any type of discrepancy, those are our areas that we want to talk about in those meetings so that we're hearing from everyone. And we do intentionally ask for everyone's input in the meeting, so everybody has an opportunity to talk and share. And then collectively, we all make a decision to move forward. So if there's anything we need to follow back up with the firms, with any questions or clarifications, we can do that, bring it back to the team, have another discussion. And then we all collectively make a decision on how we're going to move forward with either the short list, the interviews, and then also interview questions.
Go ahead.
A couple of follow-up questions. Can you expand a little bit on value add and change management?
Yeah, so value add was, we sort of asked for some specific information, right? But there may be things that your firm does that doesn't really fit into that, but could be really valuable for us, right? And so people highlight different things. Maybe they're big into Envision, right? And they want to share that with us, or other things that are not don't really kind of fit one of the other categories. So it's like, what else do you have that you want to share with us? And then change management is just trying to understand how do they handle change management, either within their organization and then with us too, because that's always, one of the things that we run into is like scoping things properly. And then if the scope is off for some reason, or they miss something, like how are they handling it? If there's, maybe we change the scope, right? And so how do they handle it? How are they handling things across the board? So it's that type of thing, right? Trying to understand how they handle change management.
And the other is a question for procurement, I guess, is how do we handle, 11 people applied, 4 are interviewed, some are selected. How do we handle the debriefing of the unselected, unlucky few?
So when we send out the emails to all of the firms at the step that we're now entering into the interview phase, for those that weren't selected for an interview, we follow up with individual emails, letting them know the current status. So we're letting all the vendors know every step of the way where we are. So they're not wondering and they're not emailing us. That's our goal, is to email them first. But we're including in that email when they're allowed to ask for a debriefing, which is after we've made a decision to award. And we do offer the debriefing. And I would say in every case where we have the BOAs, every single firm will come in for a debriefing. And we include the project manager. We go through all of the comments from the evaluators and provide any feedback, both positive and negative. And our firms are always very happy with the transparent process that we offer to them. So we get excellent feedback from all of the firms regarding our procurement process.
Well, congratulations on doing that. That's a big part of
Thank
the
you.
process, not just, it's easy to pick the winners, but
We always follow up and follow it all the way to the end. Thank you.
I know when I was doing it years ago, the firms used to really appreciate the debriefing. That they really liked that. That's good.
And this past year, just to add to that, we started a contractor and design breakfast. So we had actually heard from feedback from Waterjam recently that a lot of firms were asking, are we doing it again? So even the firms that we're not currently working with, we've invited all of them in, filled this room this past spring. And we'll continue doing that in the future. So we've already just talked yesterday about doing that again in the springtime.
Could you go back to the scoring slide again? So just curious, does pricing factor in at the BOA stage at all?
No.
Is there any labor category pricing request?
Nope.
No,
We are not. So VPPA specifically says we cannot ask for cost. So this is all qualifications based. We do negotiate the rates, right? Once we are working on the award, right? We've made the selection, we're notified. Then we do work on rates for the job classifications.
Yeah.
But we cannot, no, this is all qualifications based. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so after we made our short list, we selected who was going to move forward for the interview. We then put together the interview format, right? So we developed questions, the committee developed questions and the format for the interview. The interviews were an hour long, 5 minutes for introductions on both sides. Sometimes this is the first time, and these were all virtual, by the way. Sometimes it's the first time you're meeting, folks on the other side. So we had 5 minutes for introductions. And then the consultants had 20 minutes to, and we provided them questions ahead of time. So they had a prepared presentation that could take up to 20 minutes. So we had, I think, 3 or 4 questions for them. If they had more time, they could add, of course, whatever else they wanted in that presentation. And then we had a 30-minute general question and answer session where the committee asked the proposers, a series of questions. And then we wrapped up for 5 minutes. And largely, the questions were focused on our capital improvement plan over the next 4 years and, of course, longer, and then just trying to get a better understanding of them as a firm and their capabilities. So we interviewed 4 firms.
Do you have any requirement that the people actually working on the project do the presentation, or is it, or they, they'll probably bring their management in, but do you ask for the people that are actually going to work on it?
We don't put any requirements on who can be in the interview. It's up to the, offer to decide who they want to bring forward.
What do they generally do? Just,
It's usually 3 to 5 people or so. It's usually the top of their org chart, right? The day-to-day project manager, maybe the principal in charge, technical experts or QA/QC folks. It's kind of generally that level of folks. Every once in a while, they might bring in a project engineer just to kind of for us to meet, or a task manager, but it's generally the upper level folks that are meeting with us or interviewing. Comment? No. So from there, after the interview, we get back together again as a team and we discuss the interview, we discuss the proposal, we do a rescoring, right, based on the interview. And then, if we have any questions at that time that we really need follow-up, procurement can go ahead and ask those for us of the offers. But then we make our recommendations. So the 2020 Civil BOA had 4 consultants, RK&K, J2, Dewberry, and Wallace Montgomery. And we elected, actually, this time, the team decided that we wanted to have 5. So we kept RK&K, J2, and Dewberry, and we added Michael Baker and AMT. Michael Baker was a BOA holder, I think, in previous years, but they don't hold a current one. AMT does have a BOA with us for our GIS and record drawing, but it's a different scope of work than what we're asking for here. So we decided to make a selection. Given the amount of, and you kind of maybe saw in the finance committee, sort of pipe replacement and different linear infrastructure starting to become more prevalent for us. So we decided we wanted to have a little bit more options. Again, this recommendation is for the first year plus 3 renewals. And we do the renewal each year.
I know the county is very transparent with their rankings.
Mhm.
They'll say, somebody came in first, second, third, fourth. Do we do that as a practice, or?
No.
And is there a reason we don't, or a reason they do?
When do they make the information available? Where do they make that available?
They have a ranking before selection.
Mm.
Mhm.
So they will say who scored the highest on the rubric, and
Okay,
they don't publish the score, but they will rank them.
yes,
Just came in
yes.
first,
So
second.
we do rank them based on the collective score. So that's all part of the scoring.
But-
But we do not
But
share
it's
that.
publicly available.
It is publicly available if you requested it.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't proactively share it.
Okay.
We don't advertise it on our website, but if it was requested, it's available.
Any other questions? I think this is my last, my last slide.
the question?
No.
I'll make the motion. I move the recommendation to the board to authorize the general manager to execute 1-year basic order and agreements with Dewberry, J2 Engineers, Michael Baker, A. Morton Thomas and Associates, and Rummel, Klepper, and Carl, with the option of 3 1-year extensions for civil engineering, surveying, and related services. Future task orders related to the agreement will be presented to the board in accordance with Loudon Water Board policy, and I make the motion to go to the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good presentation. Thank you. Mr. Lipinski, capital spending report.
Good morning. We have in front of us the capital spending. This is through August, and the total expenditures are about 86.5 million. And the revised projection, and last time that we got together, we talked about the reforecast for the second half of the year. So the 86.5 is compared to that 91 million. And therefore, we're spending at about 95% of the actuals. So pretty much on target, and be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Questions? Okay, I guess that's the last item. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks.